Hello, Estrella. Welcome to Tea Talks.
Hi, Belinda. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
Good. And I didn't forget my tea in my beautiful mug
Good.
that my sister gave me.
And what tea did you bring with you today?
It's a Turkish tea. It's from the neighborhood in which I live here in London, which is
Okay.
Haringey. And yeah, it's really nice. Let me show it to you. 1 second.
Very exciting.
It's it's this one.
Oh, wow.
Quite a lot of it, as you can see. So usually this is the one that I have in the afternoon. In the morning, I'm more of an Earl Grey person. Earl Grey.
Okay, so you've adopted the British Earl Grey way of life.
I have my Turkish one in the afternoon as well. So a bit of a mix, which is what London is, the UK more broadly, I think.
Yeah, and actually your cup matches your beautiful tapestry in the background? Your artwork?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a tapestry. It's a patchwork. It's typical from Senegal. That's one of the regions in which I do my research. So yeah, mainly on festivals in Senegal. I spent there quite a lot of time doing some research on festivals. That was really, really exciting. And part of doing research is understanding the cultural background of where you are based. And in the end, there's things that you want to keep with you. So that brings me a little bit of Senegal.
Festivals was going to be one of my main topics of conversation with you, because when I was reading your biography, that was the thing that screamed out to me the most, is your love of festivals. And in fact, we share it maybe in a different kind of way. But I was really interested in that, and the fact that you are from Andalusia in Spain. And one thing that I know about Spain after living there was how festivals are such a way of life there, and there's such elaborate festivals. And I wanted to know, did that influence you at all when you developed this interest in other festivals around the world?
It's a really good question, because I first started to go to festivals without thinking that one day I would be researching them. But obviously that experience has been very enlightening, because it allowed me to compare and contrast festivals across different parts of the world. But what is interesting is how much studying festivals later allowed me to understand experiences that I had in my own town about festivals. So, for example, in my city, flamenco is very well known. I'm sure that some of you know about it. And there is a flamenco fair that we call Feria de Sevilla, Sevilla Fair. And it's that week in which there is an isolated area in the city where we do stand-ups, bars that become very social spaces, because it's not about drinking and dancing only. It's also a moment of communion with the family, with the friends, where everything is kind of allowed. There is a really good vibe, and we all dress up in our flamenco dresses that have a particular kind of fashion as well. But when I was researching in Louga, which is a rural region in the north of Senegal, I found out that the festival started as a marketplace where people were there just to show off livestock, cattle like cows and sheep and things like that. And that all the singing and all the dancing and all the decoration started because they just wanted to attract the attention of customers, right? And that's what, in the end, they started to put these fairs and the singers, and that created a sense of festiveness that remained, and that's the festival that remains. And then when researching this and telling my friends and family about it, they were like, well, that's precisely how the Feria de Sevilla started. It was mainly a place where people came to do business, where people wanted to buy livestock or horses. And what we keep today is the festivity rather than that market exchange, but at the same time there's people that still keep that tradition.
I never realized that markets that the festival, especially in Sevilla, had developed from a market. And actually, now that you say that, the atmosphere in a market isn't so dissimilar to an atmosphere in a festival. It's that excitement, that buzz, people sing, they want to attract you, and I can see how the two correlate in that way. So obviously you've spoken a bit about the festival in Senegal, and also your research in African cinema as well. And you seem to be very interested in Africa, and you have also been a director at the Cambridge African Film Festival, curator at Barcelona as well. Why Africa? How did that happen?
Well, first of all, I'm really interested in film. I studied film and media. And when I was doing my BA, it was in 2005. Degrees in Spain back then lasted for 5 years. So it ended around 2010. And back then there was a big amount of, well, a very large amount of people that was coming to Sevilla and to the coast of Andalusia more broadly. And this was, in the media, it was really simplified. It was just talked about as migration. And all of a sudden, I developed this interest in, I was very curious anyways, as a journalist. I loved film and everything. So I was very interested in other parts of the world. I loved traveling. And all of a sudden, I realized that what I was finding in the media was so stereotypical and couldn't be just the only story. So that's when I decided, okay, let's try and do something different. I also did an Erasmus year in Sussex, where I studied documentary film. I found out that, students were from so many different backgrounds, and suddenly I came to Sevilla and I found, okay, yeah, lovely city, but where are the international people here? Let's do something. So I put together some friends and a friend from Denmark that a friend of mine had introduced to me. And we decided to do a documentary about migration from Africa to Spain. And most of the people were from Senegal. So yeah, it was a really enriching process. We just thought, okay, we don't have the means, but we have the passion, let's just do it. And I think that universities are a great space to do these kind of things, right? To try things out, things to collaborate with people who are also learning. So yeah, we just did it. We did a documentary film, and then it was quite successful. We screened it in the university, we won an award, and then I went to Senegal to screen the documentary. And back then I already had a really big interest in knowing what it was like in the other side. So I also applied to do an internship in a newspaper over there in the cultural section. I screened the documentary, and it was over there where people were like, wow, we need to do a second part from Senegal. And I worked in the cultural section, so I just developed a really big interest. And then I went to SOAS, University of London, which is the School of Oriental and African Studies, and I studied African filmmaking. So I started to develop this expertise in African film, and my tutor was someone who was also very interested in festivals. And she was the founder of the London Film Africa Festival. So I volunteered. And again, these volunteering experiences that happen in the university, or thanks to the university, that become life changers.
Yeah, there are so many opportunities. I mean, you spoke about Erasmus, learning, helping with your language skills, seeing how different countries teach the same subject almost, as well. They're going to have a different take on it, and it just opens so many doors. But I think you have to be willing to, and volunteering, as you say, and looking for those opportunities, because you can quite easily go through university and not take advantage of these opportunities, I think, as well. So Estrella, another question I have for you. So in your opinion then, what makes a good festival?
That's a really good question. And actually, as you are asking it to me, look at what I have here next to me. I mean, I don't know all the books, but I have this book, for example, Film Festival Survival Guide.
Survival Guide.
I have as well do you want to start a film festival? I have as well behind the scenes, and some of them give formulas for what constitute a good festival. But let me tell it to you in a very simple way from my own experience. I think that, I mean, one of the points that I made in my research, because I was looking at the local and international dimensions of festivals in Senegal. And one of the things that I was looking at was precisely what were the festivals that managed to reach an amount of editions over time, and what was the what were the reasons that didn't really allow festivals to exist more than a couple of years, right? And one of the things that I found out was that it was very important to do a festival that matched with the local population, that included this one in the festival, that made the project their own. So many of them spoke about festivals as a project of territory, that it's by the population where the festival is hosted, for that population first of all, and then which has an international aspiration, of course, which is always a really good window to market your place, right, as a tourist destination, or just as a cultural capital, really. So I think that is one of the main success formulas. Make sure that you are doing a festival that talks to the local population, that really counts on them, that is enjoying that resources and is departing from a need or a passion perceived by that local population. And then I would say that it's a matter of thinking very well of what kind of sectors do you want to include, or how many sectors do you need in order to achieve the goals? What is that thing that is going to make your festival distinct from others? But also, are you thinking of collaborating with other festivals? Are there any festivals that you really need to take into account?
Absolutely.
I mean,
and I think to see that passion.
But
it looks like I've picked the right subject matter. I mean, I've been to quite a few festivals. They tend to be music festivals. And one of the things that I feel is so important, and I don't know if you'd agree with me on this, are the small details. You know, the effort that takes place, the amount of people that are working on festivals.
And the communication of what is going to happen, because that's really key, right? You may be doing something, but how are you going to communicate it? That's something that is really key. And how many things are happening at the same time? What are the spaces that we are using? How can people reach these spaces? All of this is really, really important to consider.
And what would you say, I mean, have you, I'm assuming that you have been to some British festivals, you especially, you obviously have been a director at the Cambridge African Film Festival, but apart from the ones that you've worked on, have you been to any other British festivals that you would say that's a great example of a festival? I really enjoyed that festival, and why?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I hadn't been to many British festivals before I moved to the UK, but then when I came here, for sure. In terms of film festivals, as you say, I do not only have that experience in the Cambridge African Film Festival, but also in other film festivals. So yeah, I also did some participation with the Winchester Film Festival, also with the Watersprite Film Festival in Cambridge, the Cambridge Film Festival, Film Africa here in London. But again, those are festivals in which I have kind of collaborated. I have also been in music festivals, and one of the ones that I really, really enjoyed, and I have very good memories of that one, is Lovebox. Lovebox is an electronic and indie music festival that happens in Victoria Park in London. It wasn't too far from where I was living. So yeah, it was great because it allowed me to see as well how inclusive festivals are in the UK. So there are always this kind of stigmas about festivals as being places where there may be toxics being consumed and so on. And here in the UK, I have found that there are many different ways of living festivals, and there are a lot of different family events that are thought for young parents with children and so on. I also went to the Winchestival, which is a really, really interesting festival in Winchester, just next to the campus, really, in the same place where the bonfire happens. And I really like the family aspect about this again. It was a festival where you go during the day and it has many different tents. It's kind of outdoors. And there's local bands, there's small little bands coming in different spaces. They play around and they keep changing. But also there are bigger things happening at night, like larger music bands who play, and then another section as well with electronic music, because I also really like electronic music. So yeah, that was also a really nice local festival that I was very happy to find in Winchester. What other festivals could I mention? I don't want to miss any.
There's so many. So many.
Festivals.
Have you been to the big one? Have you been to Glastonbury?
I haven't been to Glastonbury. I haven't.
Well, that is one festival that I would say, as a festival lover, you have to experience.
Yeah.
But it is a big festival.
Yeah. Oh, I also been to WOMAD here in Bristol.
Which one? Sorry.
WOMAD festival.
So WOMAD, yeah.
Yes. So that was a really nice one as well in the UK. Again, it happened in a zoo in Bristol. It was raining. I mean, back then I remember I was also following a musician. So I was thinking, oh no, the concert is going to be cancelled. It's raining so much. And one thing I learned about the UK very soon was that nothing gets cancelled, even if it's
nothing
raining.
Stops. You will literally dance in the mud. No one will leave.
Yeah, like people dancing under the umbrella.
And that can make the festival. The weather has a massive impact on a festival.
Yeah. And obviously, I was just remembering this when you mentioned Glastonbury, because the image I have of Glastonbury is basically that image of people in the mud with like really big, like, yeah. So, I mean, I am a bit discouraged from going because of all the rain that I've heard of, but I would love to go eventually.
There is a hat festival. I haven't been there in Winchester.
Yeah, I have. Also in Winchester.
You can make a festival out of the smallest and biggest things, and then you compare it to a festival like Glastonbury, where you've got film, you've got poetry, you've got pretty much everything, sculpture, performance, and then you've got these very niche festivals. Sorry?
The festival is a really nice one that happens as well in Winchester in the streets, and it just gets so animated, like the area. Like all over the gardens, and it's lovely. So many different circus performances mainly.
So on to our next question then, because I think we could talk about festivals probably for hours and hours. Yeah. So if one of your students were interested in working in a festival in their career in the future, what would you say was a quality that they would need in order to succeed, or that they would need to do? What would your advice be to somebody who wanted to get into that industry in the future?
Networking skills. But I think that that's something that you certainly develop. It starts from the classroom. It starts from talking to peers and just being very attentive all the time. I think it's a lot about listening. I understand this seems quite demanding because we are often overwhelmed with information, and it's overwhelming for students who arrive for the very first time, and it's overwhelming for tutors because we like to know students very well one-to-one, and we manage at some point in the year, but not from the very first day, and it's something that we build. So I think that there is also that sense of being brave to make mistakes, being brave, and stop thinking that you may be sounding ridiculous. I mean, look at me. I'm Spanish. I've never lost my accent. And here I am to really...
And it's lovely. I think it's lovely to have an accent, and it's part of your identity. And I think too many people from a language point of view worry about how they sound and worry about making mistakes. But I think the important thing is to just speak, say the words that you have. And
concentrate rather. I mean, it's normal as well. I understand people at the beginning may get a bit confused when they hear me for the first time, but it's true that after a couple of minutes you do get used to people's voice and tone and accent. So at some point we can make that switch and think rather of the content. So I think that it's important to make that switch from the very beginning and try to think about, okay, what can I contribute with and what have I done, but also, you know, like how are people discussing this? And that's how you develop little by little networking skills. So it's about being humble, it's about being passionate, but it's also about having that proactiveness.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for answering that. And I have one last question for you, and I don't know where that's going to lead us. Obviously, we've been affected by COVID, and the festival industry has been massively affected by COVID. And I just wanted you to give your opinion, really, in how you think the festival industry will cope with COVID, how you're personally coping with that in your professional life, and do you think that festivals will survive? What's the future?
For sure, they will, and they are surviving, and it's thanks to collaborations. So we were talking before about how I was involved in the Cambridge African Film Festival for many years, ever since I think 2014, something like that. Well, we've always collaborated with other UK-based African film festivals. And this year what we did is that we put together an online film festival in which we selected the 10 titles that we had liked the most from our 10 latest editions. So we were curating together all the UK-based African film festivals. And this was a really nice way of making something happen, but also of celebrating the history and the impact that each of our festivals have had, and of embracing that sense of collaboration that has made it possible. So I think that that is one of the ways of thinking about film festivals in the period of COVID-19. I know we tend to focus so much on the negative impact and so on, but I think that a lot of good practices are emerging. And that some of them may remain. So the other day we were talking all of the UK-based African film festivals, which are called We Are Tano, which means we are 5. You can check it up actually in the Africa in Motion website, which is the one that happens in Scotland. So yeah, we got invited to speak about We Are Tano and this collaboration. And yeah, we were just saying, I mean, I remember Sheila Reef, the one managing the one in London, was saying how much they had to rethink this structure for this year in a blended format, some physical screenings with this social distancing, and some others that are online, some panels that are online, Q&As and so on. But she was saying how they were considering keeping some of the online aspects in future editions as well, even if there is no festival. And I think this has also allowed more inclusiveness in terms of being able to invite more speakers. And in the past, people were very reluctant to listen to a pre-recorded interview, for example. And I think that today that's changing, because that's how we are getting used to interacting with each other. There's really no other way. And we count on really good technologies. So that's something that we really need to take advantage of, I think. So I think that, again, like just to recap, it has shown how much collaboration is possible. This is something that was highlighted as well in a panel of a recent festival that happened in London, the BFI London Film Festival, where different festival managers from all over the UK were invited to share their opinions. And they were very much saying, yes, we do need to support, we do need support from policies, we do need support from funding, from grants that really support culture and, you know, realize how much, acknowledge how important culture is to make a city alive, really. But also we really need to rely on social capital, what we call social capital, which is that human collaboration. And that's, instead of thinking of competition, I think it's important to try and change the focus to collaboration. And I think that also translates into the learning environment in a university.
Absolutely. I think I've never collaborated so much since COVID's happened, and it's opened, although it's closed some doors and we can't ignore that, it's definitely opened others, and there is a positive side. Thank you so much, Estrella, for coming to Tea Talks and having this interview, and hopefully you'll get to see your students soon.
Yes, I look forward to hearing from you and also your own experiences of festivals.